Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first For Wild Places Summit. My name is Hilary McAllister. I'm one of the co-founders of Wild Places, and today I'm coming to you from Palawa and Pakana country in Uluwita, which is also known as Tasmania. At the moment, we have Paige joining us, who's one of the co-founders of Wild Places, and shortly we'll have Mariella joining us also. So thank you everyone for coming, and we're really excited to have such an amazing group of guests joining us today. You might have seen in the comms we've sent out already, but we've got 4 conversations happening today, the first of which will kick off at 4 p.m. So our first conversation today is with Belinda Baggs and Vicki Adams. Belinda Baggs is the co-founder of Surfers for Climate, and Vicki Adams is a co-founder of Outdoor People for Climate Action. Each of our conversations today is focused around a particular topic, and each session will go for about 45 minutes with time for questions at the end. So our first session at 4 p.m. is called Making a Movement, where founders of local movements from the environmental advocacy world speak about what motivated them to go beyond the everyday actions and create a lasting impact in the climate space. And just so to let you know, we're recording these, so you'll be able to catch up on the sessions afterwards. They'll be available for 7 days afterwards. Hopefully we've got Mariella joining us shortly. I'm just going to make her.
Yes, I'm here. Hello. My video has been stopped, however, so I don't know. Oh no, here it is. Hello.
Nice to see you, Mariella.
Nice to see you. We're matching unintentionally.
So it's a public holiday down here in Tassie, as it is in Victoria. However, I believe you guys in New South Wales aren't quite as lucky today.
Not today.
Do you guys just want to quickly introduce yourselves? Because the 3 of us will be hosting the 4 conversations today. And we've all been part of For Wild Places for just over a year now. I guess I'll quickly give you a bit of background on For Wild Places. So we started about this time last year. We all came together at Takina Ultra, which was an event in the northwestern Tassie, which was put on by the Bob Brown Foundation, and it's dubbed as a race to save a rainforest. So Paige and I took part in some of the events, and we met a bunch of other awesome people there. And one of the co-founders, Simon Harris, got in touch with us all afterwards and said, these guys are a bunch of, you're all motivated, you all want to do more in the trail running space, so why don't we kind of start our own thing? So For Wild Places was born. And yeah, it's almost been a year, and we've done a lot of work in the background, and now it's exciting to finally, I guess, be putting a few events out there. And Paige hosted one of our first Wild Traction days last weekend up in the Illawarra. So it's finally great to be out there in the community and meeting people. So if you guys want to quickly introduce yourselves. Take it away, Paige.
I'm Paige. I'm 21. I'm from the Northern Illawarra, in a place called Stonewall Park, which is on Darrell country. I've been trail running for about 2 years now. And yeah, like Hilary said, did the Tarkine run in March last year. I already knew Hilary from a previous running camp, but then, yeah, met up with Simon and another guy called Tim, who's also from the Illawarra, and they've all sort of started For Wild Places. And I guess I've always been sort of environmentally conscious and sort of passionate about that, but not really sure how to do anything about it. and then these guys came along, and it was a perfect opportunity to marry running and trail running, and so here we are.
Cool. I'm Mariella. I'm 23, and I didn't run the Tarkine last year. So I was kind of a slight, I mean, still around this time last year, but I was a slight later addition. And I guess I came into it rather through more of the climate action angle initially than the running angle. So I was working last year at Future Super, which is the ethical super fund, and Simon, one of the For Wild Places co-founders, reached out to my boss and asked if she had anyone on her team who would be interested in being a part of this group of people. My boss knew that, you know, I love to run. I would say that I'm a trail noob. I've done Budai twice, but much shorter distances than I think what the rest of the crew have been doing in their time. So I kind of was like very fresh, and I'm very excited. I'm an aspirational trail runner for sure, but definitely came into it because I was like, if that's where I want to be, but I'm already kind of committed to climate action, then this is the perfect spot to work on both of those things. So I obviously am not at Future Super anymore. I'm now in my first year of uni again, having a Bachelor of Chiropractic Science, but that's also been a great way to think about, you know, how do the ways that we move through the world impact bigger than just ourselves.
Awesome. So yeah, we're three of the women at For Wild Places, and we've had a few other people reach out. Special shout out to Liz, who's come on board as well, who is helping us out with. We've realized that starting a non-for-profit organization requires a lot of behind the scenes work in legal and governance and all these things that we're now learning about. So it's great to have women like Liz putting up their hand to come and help on a voluntary basis and help us navigate the interesting world of non-for-profit and I guess climate action. So which kind of segues first into our first conversation nicely. So as I was saying before, our first conversation is with Belinda Baggs and Vicki from Outdoor People for Climate Action. And I'll be hosting that one. And then each conversation goes for about 45 minutes. And then we're going to stop the Zoom so that way we can record that particular session. And then we'll pick it up again on the hour for the following conversation. So at 5 p.m. we have advocacy in the outdoors with Lena Charles, who's the head of impact from Clothing the Gap, joining us, and Pasha Light, who's a pro surfer. And that conversation focuses on the world of intersectionality and the outdoors, exploring the potential of the sporting world to lead the change in social and environmental advocacy. And I guess this term sports activism is something that we've kind of jumped on it for Wild Places, inspired by the work that surfers do, in particular Surfers for Climate Action in the Fight for the Bite movement, which, you know, was just amazing to see the positive outcome of that. And we want to do the same thing for Wild Places on land as well as water. So after advocacy in the outdoors at 6 p.m, we have Daring Greatly, and we have Sam Gash and Melissa Ury joining us, who are both phenomenal ultra athletes. And they've both set some massive goals and courageously pursued them. So we're looking forward to chatting about how they navigate common side effects such as imposter syndrome, self-belief, and the rigors of training on the mind and body. So looking forward to hearing from them and hopefully inspiring us all to set some epic goals for 2021. And our final conversation is a work in progress, embracing a holistic approach to training, which Paige will be facilitating. And for that, we have Lucy Bartholomew, a Melbourne-based runner, and Lydia O'Donnell, who's she's a coach who specialises in female-based training. So each of these sessions will be recorded. So if you can't stay the whole time, I understand it's quite a chunk of your day on a Monday afternoon. You can catch up later. And so I think without much further ado, we might kick into the first conversation. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention, Mariella or Paige? Anything I've forgotten?
No, just thanks for coming, and we're stoked to have some of these conversations with the amazing women that have agreed to join us. Yeah,
totally. And I guess just we've never done this before. Just a bit of a we're hoping we look like
disclaimer
before we get started. But because we have For Wild Places, it's a platform for us to connect to the community. So we wanted to take this opportunity to put something on for International Women's Day. So that way we can yeah, have these conversations that, you know, personally, these are people that I look up to and want to ask them questions myself. So it's, in a way, we're selfishly using this opportunity so we can, you know, get answers to some things and have a chance to connect with these awesome women. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's agreed to come on today and giving us your time. And we've offered the women to pay them for their time because we understand that a lot of the work in the environmental and social advocacy space goes unpaid. And some of the women, most of the women have generously offered to donate their payment to the Bob Brown Foundation, who at the moment, doing a lot of work in Tasmania predominantly to save native forests. So Paige, Mariella and I are all be meeting for the first time next week. Is it next week? No, 2 weeks away, down in Takina again. And it's super exciting. We've done the whole past 12 months via Zoom, so we're pretty familiar with Zoom. But it'll be great to finally see each other and and the rest of the Wild Places team down there. So yeah, Mariella and Paige will be popping back later. So I hope that they can stick around on the chat and chuck us some questions and give me thumbs up that all the audio is working when it should be. I'm just hoping for the best. Awesome. Thank you both. Let's talk soon. So I will grab. So on the line, we have Belinda and Vicki. I'll just add them to co-host. Oh, there we are, Belinda. Hey, how you going?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good. You did say your house was quite dark and
It sure is. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize.
It's a cold and gloomy day out there. So the light's not really helping very much.
Yeah, no, that's all good. Well, thank you for joining us. As I said earlier, I'm currently on Palua Pakana country in Uluwitja. Where are you coming to us from today?
I'm on Wadawurrung country, also known as the Surf Coast of Victoria.
Beautiful. So I'll just, while we're waiting for Vicki, I'll just got a little bio here on you, which just to, so that way we give some people some context before we get started. But you're a Surf Coast local, and Belinda's grown up gracing the beaches and waves all along Australia's east coast. And as well as being a global sports activist with Patagonia, Belinda has co-created Surfers for Climate with Johnny Abegg in 2018, I believe, and is a proud advocate for all environmental protection and preservation of living things. And Vicki, when she joins us, she's had years of experience working within the outdoor tourism industries and has explored many of Australia's famous hikes, including Larapinta and the Australian Alpine Walking Track. However, in 2020, Vicki made the bold move to step away from professional guiding to take urgent action on climate change, which is a really bold and impressive thing to do. So Q Outdoor Peoples for Climate Action, which is a non-profit organisation that wants to stand up for the outdoors through fostering community, empowering bold action. So I feel like between For Wild Places, Surfers for Climate and Outdoor Peoples for Climate Action, we've all kind of tread a similar path over the past year or two. And I'm sure that with you, Belinda, as well, like what made you want to, I guess, go beyond what you were doing already and, you know, go through the process of starting at Surfers for Climate?
I think firstly, I just want to note that there's so many great non-for-profits that are already out there working in this space. And I had been working with some of those in the past, which has been amazing. And I feel like I've learned so much, not just from them, but also from working with Patagonia as well. But I was seeing quite a big gap in between the non-for-profits that were working on climate, but then also reaching my community of surfers. And so I guess that idea just kind of resonated, that like we could take a lot of these really strong, powerful messages and talk to the surfing community and in different ways as well, like really look and dive deep into the climate impacts that we're already facing as surfers and that we're seeing along our coastlines. And then obviously provide actions for people to get involved and do the right thing.
Yeah, totally. And I guess that was kind of off the back of the paddle outs and the Fight for the Bike campaign, which proved to be incredibly successful and inspiring for
Oh,
people all along the coastline.
yeah, completely. I was, one of the many people that were involved in getting that whole thing off the ground. And it really just was a proving factor that surfers really did give a shit, and that they were willing to stand up and protect all these places that we love so much. And to me, the number one threat of our ocean is climate change. And so yeah, just like trying to utilize that momentum and bring it about in a climate space.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we have Vicki here now. Hey Vicki, how are you?
Hi, Hilary. Thanks so much for having me. I'm good.
No, thank you for joining us. And whereabouts are you coming to us from today?
Yeah, so I am calling from Kiama, New South Wales on Darwall country.
Awesome. And how, I guess you made the bold move in 2020 to decide to pursue climate action in 2020. What kind of made you want to start to unite the outdoors community, and why did you choose that particular community?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I guess for my personal concern or journey with climate action, it really started with me just learning about the issue, because I hadn't realized that I didn't have a great understanding about the issue. And then I was inspired by the September 2019 climate strikes to research the issue. And so that's where my journey started with that. And for me, I realized that I really wanted to do something about the issue. And so I kind of dived into the climate movement. But I definitely realized moving forward that the outdoor community is really dear to my heart. And I've spent a lot of time working in outdoor education and tourism. And most of my friends either work in the outdoors or love the outdoors. So I wanted to do it with my community. So I definitely imagined a group that could serve as a bridge between the climate movement and the outdoor community.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you co-found it with some friends or some people that you knew in the industry?
Yeah, look, so it's an interesting story for how it started, because I could see the gap. I guess I could see the space for something to move into the outdoor community and start engaging with outdoor workers, for example, and also outdoor enthusiasts, of course. And so I was keen to start the group, and so I kind of went out on a limb and started it quite early, and I did that with a lot of different support from people around me. So a lot of friends, family, my partner who's in the group as well. So with a support network, really, and then since then, it's become really open and collaborative, as in the last year, a lot of volunteers have joined up. So I'm just one volunteer on the team, and we've got our business supporters. And so we've got a lot of people engaged with the group. And so it's very much an evolving group. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess volunteers are kind of integral to those early stages when it is just a bit of a passion project, and unfortunately there's not a lot of funding or money out there for environmentally based groups. And what we found with For Wild Places is we were kind of tossing up becoming a nonprofit or not, because essentially if we can make money, that's money that we can give to protecting wild places, but it's also feels like a bit of a faux pas to want to be in the business to make money in the environmental space. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but at the same time, it is also something that you want to set up to be a solid base. So that way, ideally we don't have to be around for a long time, but when, while this climate action movement is so necessary, we need to make sure that the businesses that we do set up, have enough money to kind of make things happen and employ good people and make amazing things happen. So I guess for yourself, Belinda, how did you and Johnny kind of come together? Now you've got a board of directors, and how have you found kind of setting up the structural side of things?
So Johnny and I have been mates for quite some time, just through surfing connections. And we were on a bit of a workshop with the Climate Council. It's kind of like a summit on Heron Island to sort of learn more about climate impacts. And we both came away with the same idea of like, hey, we really need to let like all these surfers know. And that's where our idea of creating Surfers for Climate was initially born. Since then, we've come a huge way. Like, you know, I've sort of walked away being like, cool, we can organize protests and like do a few actions. And now we've got like a board of directors and a constitution and all this other legal stuff that I'd never really intended to do. But when, you know, you sort of dive into it, you realize that, you know, you need to get all this stuff done in order to have all your correct registrations as a non-for-profit and a charity, and I guess just to be like legitimate, you know.
Yeah.
The process has been a huge learning curve for me, that I've welcomed, because it's been great to be able to just learn more about the whole idea of how you know, the back end of how a non-for-profit runs, really. I have to agree that I hate the idea of having to raise money. Obviously, there's costs that any type of organization incurs. So inevitably, we do need to raise like a little bit of funds. And, you know, there's only so much that you can ask volunteers as well until you really need like some specialists to sort of step into the space and take care of specific things. So we are running on a volunteer basis at the moment, but we do hope in the future to be able to start employing people in order to really be able to tackle with expertise all the necessary requirements that it's going to take to fix this climate crisis.
Yeah, totally. And there are a lot of, talented people out there who are keen, and it's great to have the volunteers. But then it also, you know, I guess, I don't know about for you guys, but because we started it during COVID, it was kind of a great time because, you know, people's social calendars were pretty sparse. So for me, it was a welcome relief to have something to throw myself into that felt, you know, like I was doing something good while, you know, you kind of stuck at home during lockdown. But then, you know, now with the things opening up and people, you know, having weekends and things again, it's like, you know, and a part of it as well, as you two would understand, is like, there's so much laptop time, but you also need to make time to go outside and go for surf or go for a hike or get outdoors and be like, oh, this is why I'm doing this, you know, as opposed to feeling like you're sitting writing email, you know, being an email warrior all day. It's quite tricky to try to find that balance sometimes. I guess I'm also interested to know, like, how has your initial goals for your organizations changed, like from when you started, you know? And I guess, like you're saying, Belinda, often it's like, yeah, let's do protests and actions, and then you kind of get caught up with 6 months of like, you know, writing constitutions and those sorts of things. But like like, what do you kind of, now that you've, I guess, you know, a few years in, what do you see Surfers for Climate? What's your focus going forward?
So we have 4 main goals that sort of govern the majority of our decisions. The first one is to mobilize and empower an alliance of surfers who care about climate. So I guess a lot of that just comes back to like awareness, and really trying to draw those links between what we are experiencing and impacting on our shores, and bringing it back into that climate space, like things such as coastal erosion, coral bleaching, and, you know, the whole list goes on. We're all familiar with them. The second one is to then provide solutions for all these surfers to take action on climate. So those solutions can be in an array of things, you know, starting with talking to surf brands on sustainability measures, all the way down to like wiping out your own impact as surfers. It's no secret that our surfboards are made out of petroleum-based products. We drive our car. We're notorious for going on surf trips and flying around the world, although COVID's put a stop to most of that. So just sort of coming up with really tangible and easy solutions that surfers can make to wipe out their own emissions. The other one is to ensure that the surfing community continues to play a powerful role in stopping coastal and offshore fossil fuel developments. We just recently, I actually just submitted it before I got on this phone call, wrote in a submission to the Australian government asking them to rethink the annual offshore acreage release process, which is really the beginning of any type of fossil fuel developments in our oceans. So that's, you know, all things like that are kind of like part of what we're doing. And then the last one is to really make MPs representing our surf communities take action on climate. And hopefully that's going to be in a positive way. We've had some great feedback and formed some great relationships so far with a lot of MPs representing these coastal areas. And, you know, of course, it might end up taking communities to really rally as well. It's going to be exciting around election time.
Yeah, totally. And it's kind of coming around quickly. And I think that that's what you guys have really highlighted, is the importance of, yeah, like contacting your local MP and kind of doing it on a local level, whether it be, you know, council, state, whatever, but rather than feeling like, because it's really often easy to feel disempowered and be like, you know, the government's not listening, but it's like the government is made up of a bunch of individuals, you know, who often live in these areas and you know, appreciate the outdoors in their own way. So yeah, I think the way that you guys have been doing that really shows that, you know, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and, you know, rather than just signing a petition, you can make your voice heard. And yeah, letter writing and all that kind of stuff is super important as well.
Yeah, and I think just with a lot of the issues that we're tackling, like, you know, the big systemic changes is going to occur, you know, with those decisions that are made inside the walls of Parliament. So unfortunately, we need their help as much as we can. And, you know, there's so many surfers, probably like there are runners around the country too. There's like 3 million surfers within Australia. So that's a lot of numbers when you think about time to hit the polls.
Totally. And how about yourself, Vicki? Like how is like the goals for Outdoors People for Climate Action, like, you know, changed since you know, had the idea come to you a couple of years ago?
Yeah, so I very much related to what Belinda was saying earlier, in that the groups definitely kind of started with smaller dreams than what we've got now, and then actually working in this space, we just see more and more opportunities arise for ways that we can make change. And so our scopes definitely broadened, and I guess alongside that, our goals, while we've actually been active in the outdoor community, have really refined themselves. So currently our goals fairly similar to Surfers for Climate, but to sound the alarm. So really drawing the links between lots of different outdoor pursuits and outdoor businesses and how climate impacts will affect them. Empowering bold action. And again, linking that to the rest of the climate movement, because there's so many amazing groups and campaigns out there that we can all take action with. Building our community. So I think a big role that Outdoors People for Climate Action can play is creating space for different outdoor enthusiasts and workers to come together about what they're already passionate about, and taking action on the climate crisis, and then to stand up for the outdoors. So yeah, making sure we're communicating with decision makers and sharing those unique concerns and connecting the dots for them about how our community will be impacted. So they've definitely changed a lot, as in they've become a lot more refined as we've gotten to know all the opportunities we have, and our scopes definitely broadened. Yeah,
no, that's fantastic. And I guess it's what we've found with For Wild Places is we often get a bit distracted because there's so much potential within, I guess, the trail running space and then just the broader outdoor space that, you know, we're kind of forcing ourselves to we like choose a few key goals for each quarter to focus on. And then, you know, it's like once we've accomplished that, then we can go to the next idea, because yeah, it's super easy to look out there and get inspired by, you know, like Protect Our Winters and Up for Air series. And, you know, especially in the States, there's a bunch of awesome organizations and it's like, oh, let's do that here. But it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things along the way that need to be done before that can kind of happen. And yeah, it's very easy to just get excited by it all and want to do everything at once. And I guess for you guys, like for me, it was our last election result that kind of motivated me to kind of do more than like what I did on a personal level, to stand up for climate. Because I find that, you know, especially now within For Wild Places, you know, often we can be in a bit of an echo chamber with, you know, people who have similar mindsets and similar, you know, perspectives on things. And then, you know, you get an election result like we had 3 years ago, and you're just like, hang on, like, this isn't the case. Like, people aren't prioritizing, you know, the landscapes. They're, you know, prioritizing their own income, you know, whatever it is, for their own personal gain. And I'd be interested to know, like, yeah, what kind of, was there any particular moment for you, Vicki, that, you know, made you think like, yeah, I need to, you know, quit my job and focus on climate action, because it's just not, yeah, it's just infuriating.
Yeah. I mean, and I kind of alluded to it before, but for me, it was definitely, and I think it's an interesting story to share, because must be some people in a similar boat. Like, I really didn't understand the climate crisis until I read about it. And so someone had to, I think, explained it to me a few years before I would have gotten on board, really. And so that was a big thing for me. And then I guess, you know, it's probably not enough. So probably seeing how active everyone else was, because, you know, I was only getting engaged with the climate issue in September 2019. And so seeing how active the climate movement was hugely inspiring. You know, people have made it so possible for people to get involved. And also definitely from an outdoor education perspective, though, I've spent a lot of time working with teenagers. So to see teenagers concerned about their future and needing to take leadership themselves was a big call to action for me. Yeah.
What lessons do you think we can learn from, you know, kids and teenagers who, you know, have a very, I guess, in a way, unjaded perspective like adults, and, you know, can kind of often see things in a very black and white way?
Yeah, it's such a good point. Yeah, I think we have so much to learn from teenagers, because I think they see what needs to happen and they aren't stuck in their ways. Yeah.
And when you said that you learned about the climate movement, like, what did someone point out particular resources, or did you do your own investigating, or what kind of spurred that, education, I guess?
Yeah. So I was kind of on the tail end of my time in Alice Springs. I was leaving from work at that point. So while I could see all the community engagement there, I was kind of leaving. And so once I got to Sydney, I really didn't know where to start, and I didn't know anyone in my circles to turn to. So I just had a look, really, and eventually I found resources, and I found groups, and that felt like such a big breakthrough for me. Just that initial little bit, just being able to show up at. So I really went to meet up with groups in the Sydney CBD. So, you know, Extinction Rebellion or School Strike for Climate or 350.org, lots of people taking action. And so that felt like a big breakthrough. So I was very grateful to be able to go and meet other people who were very active in the issue.
Yeah, that would have been a very inspiring way. And what I've found is when I've put myself in similar situations, it's amazing to see the cross-section of the community that are there. You know, it's, you know, often a lot of people, you know, who are kind of our age, but then I always see a lot of retirees and a lot of new parents who are, you know, they're like, I'm here for my kids, or I'm here for my grandkids. And yeah, especially retirees, like they've experienced it in their lifetime. And, you know, now they're at a point where, you know, they don't have that kind of work to give them purpose. So they do turn to organizations like XR and Greenpeace and whatnot. And they're amazing because they've got the resources and the time and the passion to, you know, actually, you know, go to protests and, you know, kind of do those things that we can often get caught up with when we're trying to balance, you know, a work and that sort of thing. How about for you, Belinda? Like, was there a particular, like, I guess, was the paddle outs around the Fight for the Biter kind of bit of a, you know, hang on, we're on to like something pretty epic here moment?
Yeah, I would say so. I think like my personal call to be able to do more for the climate movement was when I had my son, as you spoke about new parents. Just realizing, the climate impacts and the predicted trajectory that we're on if we don't reduce our emissions is like absolutely terrifying for any parent. To think that, my child is going to be experiencing all those impacts within his lifetime, and then even scarier, whatever legacy he's then going to be handing on to his children is like something that just wasn't sitting right with me. And I was like, okay, so as a parent, I see my role as as to make sure that your child has a safe and flourishing future. Sometimes that's, within an hour, the next day, or, further down the track when they're adults. And I see my role as being able to provide him with that. And so the most important thing that I can do for him and his future is to do as much as I possibly can to try and turn this around.
Okay.
And I think as far as Surfers for Climate goes, it was definitely that time with Johnny on Heron Island, and then the Fight for the Bite just being like a bit of an extra incentive of being like, right, like surfers are ready for this. We all love these places that we visit every day. We're all connected to them. Like there's locations that we think of as these sacred sites, almost like our version of churches or something. Like we literally go there to like worship these waves. And so yeah, it was just like, all right, it's time, let's give this thing a shot. And I think at the same time, with a few friends down here along the surf coast, we'd also been wanting to get involved in a lot of the school strike for climate, or like XR rallies and things like that were happening, but they were all in the city. And so, it sort of seemed a little bit counterproductive for us to jump in a car and drive 2 hours to Melbourne in order to join like a big school strike for climate march. And so we were kind of toying with the idea of, on a local level, like it'd be great if we could, start hosting these events for our own community. And it kind of just morphed those two ideas together that I had with Johnny and getting the surf community on board. And so that's sort of where we went from.
Yeah, it's a really special community down there on the surf coast. And like, I think that's what I've realized in like, Melbourne, obviously it's like those major cities are a real hub for action. But then as soon as you try and engage a local community, the uptake and with people getting involved is astounding, because often, they're just feeling that lack of, engagement, I guess. And it just takes someone to kind of put their hand up and then offer that platform. And before you know it, people are, turning out in their thousands to paddle out and, picking up rubbish on, creating, all these initiatives that kind of not only, I guess, draw attention to these issues, but then actively try and, make these places that you said that we do worship, enjoyable for everyone else and make other people love them as well. Because I guess with For Wild Places, what we're trying to do is, get people outdoors and get them, engaged in these places, because, being in the outdoors is in its own way makes you love it and then therefore want to protect it. And I think that what I loved about the Fight for the Bite was like, I go surfing like once every 4 years. And then I think, oh, my arms hurt too much. That's enough. But I paddled out and it was great. And I was like, I can be a surfer for a day and it doesn't matter, and it's just feeling part of that community is really, really special.
Yeah, completely. And that's one thing I loved about the Fight for the Bite too is, I don't know, sometimes at certain locations, surfers have this kind of hardcore, like, don't approach me, I'm head local. And at the Fight for the Bite, we had, pro surfers, head locals, kids, grandparents, like people who ride a SUP or a boogie board or a surfboard, like all together fighting for the one place we loved. And that was really important.
Yeah. And it's such a visual, like the photos, especially the drone footage that you get from that is so powerful. And, and part of it is getting something that then, you know, the media want to pick up because it's a good news story kind of thing. And that's what we're finding for Wild Places is we're hosting our first peak out in March up in just after the Tarkine, the run there, because we want to get everyone on a mountain top and then, yeah, with a bunch of banners and put up a drone and try and get an amazing photo. But unfortunately, the weather's not great on peaks versus the ocean. So we might be like on a very small mountain. But yeah, just trying to get that visual image that kind of, you know, links people with the environment. And as well, I love a good banner and a slogan. Like,
Oh, completely.
I think that, yeah, it's like trying to incorporate that humor and that sense of fun into these movements is so important, because like it can all get pretty serious and, you know, disheartening sometimes. But then, you know, especially the School Strike for Climate, like just the placards that people have are so clever and unique. And yeah, is a great way to get people involved, because it's like, it is fun. Like you need these things to be fun. Otherwise, you know, it's, yeah, much harder to get people involved. And I guess what, like I was saying, it can often, you know, you feel overwhelmed and stuff, and, you know, like it often, you know, like it's not going anywhere. But do either of you have kind of like a bit of a ritual or a place, or, you know, something that you do when you are kind of like, I guess, lacking a bit of motivation? And, you know, is it a particular wild place that you escape to kind of remind yourself while you're doing it, and, you know, what all this kind of volunteer work is for? Because I know that, Vicki, you've done a bunch of hikes and stuff, like Larapinta and Australian Alpine Walking Track. Like going to those places sounds like that was the kind of crux of it for you, to think, you know, these places are changing super quickly with climate change.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely nature and being in the outdoors is definitely one of the most important parts of my life. And so for me, I really worry about human beings and the outcomes for people from the climate crisis, but it definitely digs at my heart thinking about the places that I love. And that was definitely a big experience during the fire season, seeing the fires, you know, throughout a lot of tracks that I love and a lot of places that I've worked in. So yeah, that was very confronting and made it all very real from an outdoors perspective. And definitely, I think as you were saying it earlier, I really relate to the whole experience of, you know, for me, I was working in the outdoors a lot. So I was spending a lot of time outside and waking up for work out there, and that's very nice. And obviously working in the activism space, I'm working on a computer a lot. So it's absolutely a balancing act to make sure that I am getting out into nature. And I think in general, it's so important in the climate movement or in any social movement to really focus on taking care of yourself and each other, because it can be quite a daunting thing to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess for you, Belinda, I guess you take to the waves, but like, is there any other kind of local places that you, I don't know, like to, I don't know, if you got any like trips or anything kind of on the horizon, places that you're keen to check out?
Yeah, I really want to head over to Tassie. I'd actually love to come and watch you guys in the Takanya run, but I'm not sure if I'll make it over for that. But love to head over to Tassie and just explore new regions in Australia that I haven't been to yet. So like you said, obviously taking to the waves is like my solace, and also connecting with new friends and like-minded people as well, working in the space. And to bring back the conversation to what you mentioned before, it's even so uplifting just being involved in the, you know, mass paddle outs or huge protest rallies, just to know that you're not alone. And I think that's like one big thing that, like, not only does it put pressure on our leaders to do better, but it also just is really comforting to know that there's thousands of people out there that are just as passionate as you are about this. So just connection with other people.
And now I guess, you know, COVID is slowly becoming, you know, we're going to COVID normal. And it's, I guess, do either of you have plans to do more kind of in-person events or get-togethers, or kind of, you know, I guess social media has been keen in bringing people together and getting the word out there. But now that, you know, we can finally think about planning things in the future where we bring a bunch of people together, is that something that you're hoping to do in the coming months?
Yeah, definitely. That's certainly something that we're keen to do. And yeah, so we're a new group and we're spread all around Australia, really. So I think it's kind of worked in a way, having COVID to kind of get people engaged with the group, and moving forward we can figure out, you know, where is everyone, and how can we get more face-to-face interaction happening, because I think it's incredibly important. You know, it's definitely something that volunteers and members have mentioned. So I think even just, you know, purely social events, I think they're super important. And maybe for us, you know, we should be looking at, you know, how can we even collaborate with other people's events as well? You know, how can we make that possible? But I think it's super important.
Yeah, definitely.
We're kind of in the same space. We're looking at the idea of doing some in real life events this year. The WSL is coming to Australia, which is the World Surfing Championship Tour, and they're going to do an event in Sydney, and so we're looking into possibilities of hosting an event there, not necessarily with the WSL, but just like for all the surfers that are enthusiastic and like in and around, sort of like gain off that enthusiasm, I guess, and try and like bring that into the climate space. And I agree, is that like in real life, communications are so powerful, and if we can try and do more of that now we're coming out of this COVID space, then I think it'd be very beneficial.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that it's like, what we've found as well is it doesn't have to be a big event. Like it can just be a, you know, local community-based thing. And I guess, yeah, the benefit of, you know, the world we live in now is that, you know, it's the same with for Wild Places. We've got people all over the country, so it can, you know, just be lean and do something, you know, like we said, we had something in the Illawarra just last weekend, and, you know, it's just basically trying to, get a bunch of people at the same time and place to go do the thing that you all love to do. And and like you said, Belinda, it's so uplifting to then, you know, you come out of those experiences with a new kind of energy and motivation, which then gets you going, you know, keeps you going over the next few weeks or months. But yeah, I think it was a tricky one over COVID because everyone was kind of working away independently, and, you know, just not sure when it was all going to kind of be able to happen again. But fingers crossed. And to kind of last year was, on the weekend where everything went pear-shaped. So it's kind of funny that it's the last event and then the first event almost in many ways. So everyone will be excited to get back down to Tassie, but also just I'm down here at the moment and it's just a bit of a different world in regards to COVID in comparison to Victoria. So life just goes on down here for sure. I guess I didn't have too many other questions. We did have one come through on the chat. Simon wants to know, hey Simon, what your advice would be to someone wanting to set up a similar action-based business. I guess, like we've said, we've found that, you know, there's a lot of amazing organizations already out there. And I guess the three that we've started are all quite legit, you know, is something that I've learned. You can't just, you know, there's a lot of work involved. But do either of you have any kind of things that you've learned along the way that you know, advice you'd pass on to anyone else wanting to create their own movement?
I would say make sure that you have connections with people who have done it before. Obviously, help guiding you through these tricky situations is hugely beneficial. And then the other one I'd say is to make connections with all the people who are already working in this space and make sure that you're not just starting a replication of another environmental organization. Either, you know, join them and be part of that if it's really similar, and if it's definitely filling a gap, then go at it with all your enthusiasm that you possibly can, because if you think you can make a difference, then you will.
No, that's very, very true. And like you said, there are a bunch of organizations out there that, are always looking for volunteers and, and people to jump on board and be part of it. And but at the same time, the more the merrier in a way.
Oh, I agree. If there's like a gap there that needs to be filled, then like go at it, because I don't know, I used to think I'm waiting for somebody, like I just want to follow somebody. When that person comes along or that group comes along, like I'll just follow and that'll be great. And then one day I realized, well, maybe that person just has to be me, as uncomfortable as that is, or how much I don't like all the extra hours behind the computer. But you know, if the time comes and then go for it.
Yeah, no, very true. How about yourself, Vicki?
Yeah, a few things have come to mind. Definitely, I think we've learned to start small. I think it can be really distracting that the climate crisis is such an enormous issue, but at the end of the day, you can only do what your resources allow you to do. So realizing what that is, and definitely similar to what Belinda said, definitely identify, like at the moment, there's so many role models out there, and there's so many people you can learn from what they're doing. Absolutely, yeah.
And do you have any particular role models that you look up to, Vicki, like other organizations, whether it's, abroad or individuals who are kind of, you look to for inspiration?
Yeah, definitely. Like absolutely, For Wild Places and Surfers for Climate are a big role model for us. And it's really amazing to see you guys really getting out there and making magic happen, and going through those processes of professionalizing. So definitely. And then also, I think in the early days, we were really looking towards groups that I think kind of serve a similar role for what we're trying to go for. So groups like Doctors for the Environment or Australian Parents for Climate Action. So that they've been incredibly helpful to look towards as well.
Yeah, awesome. And how about yourself, Belinda? Like in the early days, who did you kind of, well, I guess even now as well, who do you look to see, how to navigate this space?
There's so many different ones. For me personally, I've always been a huge fan of Surfers Against Sewage, who are an environmental organisation based in the UK. They're really amazing, but they also have a really good way of spinning things. I remember when I was a kid seeing photos of like people sitting on beaches in the UK on toilets, like just these like weird media stunts that were kind of like that, in that realm of like make good trouble, which I really liked. So they've definitely been like a guiding light for me personally. And then here in Australia, there's so many, and there's been so many great organizations who I've looked up to and who have helped us over the last year. I'm sure I'm going to forget a heap, but Bob Brown Foundation, Sea Shepherd, Seed Mob, Climate Council have been absolutely incredible. Surfrider Foundation, Wilderness Society, Friends of the Earth. So there's so many, but they're probably like, the top people that I communicate with a lot.
And with communicating with them, did you just reach out to them, or did you have a contact, or, because that's the thing, it is such a collaborative, it should be a collaborative space in the sense that like, rather than all of us trying to reinvent the wheel, it's like, how can we learn off each other and, save time and efficiencies where we can? So how did you?
Oh, completely agree. I actually already had a lot of contacts from working with Patagonia, and through my role with them, working with some of these non-for-profits already. So definitely had already established relationships, and I think they knew me personally. So when I sort of came with the idea of like, hey, I'm going to start a non-for-profit called Surfers for Climate, here's our idea, like they knew that part of that was me asking for advice straight away. So I've just been really fortunate, I think, to be around a lot of people that have been experienced in this space on multiple different levels. And I'm definitely not one who's shy to go to people or organizations who a lot of those people I now consider friends and be like, help, I'm in over my head and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I think I'm onto something good. So I'm just always really honest. And yeah, ask for help and want to learn from everybody who's worked in this space before.
Yeah, it's a great space because everyone is very willing to help and, you know, share advice and, you know, mistakes or, you know, things you would have done differently, and loop you in with people who help you can get to your final goal, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
We've had another question come in. Prue would like to know what do you feel you've achieved since starting your respective organizations?
Do you want to go first, Vicki?
Sure. Yeah. It's a pretty crazy feeling. Looking back, because definitely personally, I didn't know. You know, I was coming in with very modest expectations of what the group could be or could mean for the people engaging with it. And so what have we achieved? I think we've started dialogue in certain circles of the outdoor community, which I think is great. We've also done the same in the outdoor industry. So it's definitely, and I mean, there's certain things you get a sense of more than others, but we definitely recently have gotten a sense that we've been connecting with the outdoor education industry, and it's great to be starting a conversation there. But yeah.
Nice one. How about yourself, Belinda?
I guess achievements would be just, I guess, generally bringing more awareness in the surfing realm to the climate space. I would say is probably our biggest achievement. It's sort of a little bit of a conversation now. And, you know, obviously, as an organization, we have all these like, what's your measurable achievements? But I think, you know, not that social media makes or breaks anything, but we've definitely had some really good traction on social media. So I'd say like speaking about that in an awareness space has been quite successful for us, as being able to like identify the platforms where we can have a voice and really sort of make a difference. So that would definitely be one small achievement. Also just seeing like little spaces where you can fill in the media also I would have to say is on our list of achievements. We've had like a few little bits of airtime here and there with various different media, so that's been really, really great, especially the surf media on our launch. We're like really intrigued with what we were doing, and so again, like just bringing about awareness within this space. And then on a campaign front, I've been campaigning with Surfrider and another organisation called Save Our Coast on PEP 11, which is the zone of gas drilling, a proposed zone for gas drilling off the Sydney Basin, so in between Newcastle and Manly. And we just keep having more and more politicians say that they oppose PEP 11, which is absolutely incredible. Even Scott Morrison opposed it the other day, which was fantastic. So that's definitely an achievement that we feel like's headed in the right direction, but we're still fingers crossed that the project won't go ahead.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because often, like, you know, there's lots of kind of little achievements along the way, but then it's always like, oh, what's next? You know, because there's always that bigger picture. And I think, like I was saying before, with like, you know, trying to make this space fun, part of it is as well is taking the time to celebrate achievements, whether they be small or big, because, you know, I guess we're in it for the long haul, in the sense that, you know, for as long as it takes, we want to be doing this. But yeah, it can often feel like, you know, there's just, you know, it's like whack-a-mole, you know, especially like, yeah, with the, you know, seismic testing and all the like offshore thing. It's like, yeah, we've, you know, that one's kind of been vetoed and now there's another one. And, you know, it's the same with the logging industry and, you know, all these sorts of things. It seems to be working against you. So it is important to like take time and take stock. And often in our weekly for Wild Places calls, we'll all raise a cup of tea to something that happened that week. Because, you know, when you're not working together in an office or in a group setting as well, it can be hard to, you know, take the time to kind of appreciate everyone's hard work and remind ourselves that we're all in this because we're passionate and, you know, we all want the same things. We all want the same outcomes as well. So No, that's really important. We're about to finish up, but before we go, do either of you have anything you wanted to add or something that's come up maybe during the conversation?
I just wanted to say thanks for hosting us. I think it's great to get together and obviously, you know, talk about these issues, but just get together with great like-minded females.
Yeah, totally. And I think that I know we've had emails in the past saying we need to, the three groups kind of have like a, you know, regular catch up so we all can share, you know, war stories about, you know, writing constitutions and all that fun stuff. So we can, you know, appreciate how far we've come and what a learning curve it is, but then also, yeah, keep up to date with, you know, the initiatives that each of us are kind of pursuing. Because I think that like, yeah, obviously across social media and stuff, we're all, you know, just fighting for each other's causes because it is all inextricably linked at the end of the day. And yeah, I want to thank you guys as well for putting the Wild Places word out there and yeah, coming along today and taking the time, because it's been really nice to chat, and I'm sure that there'll be plenty more conversations, hopefully in person one day as we go.
Fingers crossed, in real life.
I know we need like an in-person summit. That'd be next year. We'll put that on the For Wild Places agenda, an actual summit somewhere where there's mountains and waves and all sorts of good things.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your Monday. And yeah, everyone else will be back in 15 minutes with Mariella for the next session.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.